Welcome to the second episode of the Hindsight and Hottakes podcast. I'm your host, Connor Justclair. I'm here once again with Brogan Burns. LSU versus Nichols has been postponed to a later date. We'll tell you more about that later. Also, the Saints finally found their guy for the OC job. But before we get to that, let's talk spring training news.
We got opinions and games to break. Welcome to Hindsight and Hottakes.
Spring training opens up this week, and I'm very excited to see some of these players donning some new threads after a wild offseason. Here's a couple of players as well as rules to be on the lookout for. It's time for our new segment, 2020 Vision.
2020 vision, seeing all the angles. Fight for the moment, grasp it like tangles. No time to falter, gotta keep pacing. Eyes straight ahead, heart racing.
Major League Baseball are looking to test an automated ball strike challenge system during spring training games. Brogan, how do you think that's going to work out?
Be honest, for anybody that's watched soccer in the past few years, the virtual assistant referee issue, where you're getting checked for everything and anything that could be against the rules, has been a big aspect of scrutiny for fans, and I think this is going to be the exact same way, because you can't have, if you're not doing an automated challenge, a regular system, why are you going to do that for the challenge system?
This is my whole take on it. I mean, baseball since 1864 has been having umpires, and the fact you're completely, I'm not going to say completely, but you're taking out that human element, that human error that you've had for 100-something years, just to change it like that, it's going to be a weird fit. It's going to be a weird season. I think it obviously has its positives, you know. Players can now, it could change the whole dynamic of a game like that. You know, bases loaded, full count, like that, it could be changed. It's going to be interesting to see what happens.
This might get rid of the most fun part of baseball.
That's what I was
yelling
thinking.
at the umpires.
A lot less managers getting thrown out.
Because I remember back when my brother was playing Little League Baseball, I yelled at that umpire. One game, I went up to him. I was like, hey, dude. And then I was like, where'd you go to school? The Angel Hernandez school? And then the dude walked away.
I don't think there's ever been an organized baseball game / tournament that someone hasn't heckled a ref or umpire or ref.
Best part, you know.
So,
take out your popcorn.
I mean, it's something that you could talk about all day. I mean, until we see it in action in spring training, we don't know how it's going to go. Maybe players like it, players may not. Managers might. I think the managers will like it because they won't have to get thrown out of games and be fined anymore. The fans might like it. I don't know. We'll see what happens. So next, we'll talk about some players to be on the lookout for this spring training go-around. First off, Juan Soto, biggest contract in baseball history. 15 years, $765 million. Was with the Yankees last year, had an outstanding year. Goes to their crosstown rival, the Mets. Brogan, what's your take?
To be honest, he would be worth that money if I knew he were going to play for the Mets for the entire contract. But I don't think that's going to happen. He's one of the best players to ever grace the field in the modern era.
Best players to ever hold a bat. That's my take.
You're more of a baseball guy than me, so I'll agree with you on that. But he's been one of the best players I've ever seen.
I'm thinking back to the World Series where there's so many plays that if he just makes those catches in right field, I mean, that could be a completely different series for the Yankees. But that's not what we're talking about now. Juan Soto, 15 years, $765 million. I mean, that's $52 million a year for, I mean, a great hitter. But last year, obviously, you had the, in my opinion, best hitter in baseball hitting right behind you for protection. I'm sorry, you go to the Mets. I mean, you have Francisco Lindor probably hitting in front of you. You have Mark Vientos hitting behind you. Obviously, had a great playoff run, but can he sustain that for a whole year? I don't think so. He's not hitting 50 home runs and hitting for a 300 average.
You know my favorite part about that World Series? The next day, when I was watching a Saints game, the announcer says, I guess Alvin Kamara drops the ball, and the announcer says,
That was Greg Olson.
That's impossible.
That's
Aaron Judge dropping the ball in the 5th inning.
I turned off the game after that.
Oh, I know you
for
did.
Our viewers.
But Juan Soto going to arguably the best team in the league, in any league.
The Mets?
They have a great hitting lineup.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they do.
They don't have a pitching staff.
But
that's besides the point.
But if they can hit,
We'll go more in depth on that on a later date.
But I do respect it for Juan Soto.
Great for Juan Soto. Love the guy.
Again.
He got the
again,
bat.
And
yes.
again.
He's going to be very well paid for the next 15 years of his life. Wouldn't be surprised if it turns into a Bobby Bonilla situation, but that's to figure out on a different day. So last episode, we talked about Alex Bregman to the Red Sox. However, that transition has not been as seamless as some may believe. As of the past few days, there have been a debate among the Red Sox organization about who's going to play third base for the 2025 season. Rafael Devers, when asked by reporters this question, said, quote, "Third base is my position. It is what I play. I don't know what their plans are. I know we had a conversation. I made it clear on what my desires were. What happens from here, I don't know." Brogan, what's your first take on that?
I think we're having a bit of a situation with the Red Sox right here. Sounds like an Aaron Rodgers situation almost. Stuck in his ways. Somebody stuck in his ways.
This is my whole thing with the Devers situation. I mean, obviously, if the dude's a top 10 defender in the league, you're not even having this talk. But he was in the bottom 5 of all third basemen last year for DRS, defensive runs saved, for people that don't know what that is. He was one of the worst in the league. I mean, his range, no offense, it sucks. He stays in front of the balls, but moving side to side, that's not his specialty. Obviously, the Red Sox signed him to be the face of their franchise, but Alex Bregman, I mean, the dude's played Gold Glove third base. As we were saying, that's what he brings to the table. He's a great defender, above average bat. But I feel like they signed that guy to help the team defensively. Now, if that's at second base or third base,
if it comes down to Devers or Bregman, it's Devers every time.
At third base.
If he says I'm gonna quit, if you don't give me third base,
yes,
he's got it. You can't let go of a player like that.
I agree with that. I think I'm not gonna say selfish, because it is his team. He's been on that team since the start of his career. He's carried that team. I mean, any success they've had is pretty much because of his bat.
But you can really put Bregman at shortstop or second base if it really comes down to it. You'd prefer to have him at third base if you're the Red Sox, but it doesn't matter at all.
And I really don't see Devers playing any other position. Like, you're not going to slide him to first.
That's the
or
only other
second.
position that would make sense
Exactly.
at first, but he's not going to want to play
He already
first.
publicly said he's not being a DH. He might slide there every once in a while, but to say everyday DH, he's not having it. So
it would be nice if he could put him in the outfield, though.
Put him in the left field where there's no room to cover.
Right.
We'll see what happens with that situation. We'll keep y'all updated on it. But as of now, Bregman he didn't want any trouble. He seemed, this is not my team. I've just been signed to this team. He seemed pretty easygoing, playing wherever they're going to put him. So we'll see what happens there. There's plenty of free agents out there. We'll have an episode on a later date going in depth on how these free agents are fitting into their new team. So, college baseball fans, it's been a busy week. Yesterday, the Nichols baseball game has been postponed due to field conditions. It has been moved to Monday, February 24th in Alex Box Stadium. LSU will travel to Thibodaux on Tuesday, April 8th. Brogan, do you think this game not being played in 30-degree weather, bad field conditions, is better for both teams, or is this just benefiting LSU?
Honestly, if I'm a Nichols fan, I'm hoping it's just LSU being whiny little, what, and that this gives us some extra motivation to go out there and beat them.
It's gonna be interesting to see. I mean, I think it would have benefited both teams because Nichols would have finally saw that. I mean, one of the best teams in the country, and LSU would have finally seen a quality opponent. Obviously, Purdue Fort Wayne is not that quality opponent, or Southern. No knock on them, but traveling anytime to another stadium, playing playing in an environment where the crowd is against you, I think that just helps a team. Obviously, LSU in the coming weeks, they're going to have to travel to Texas, take on Dallas Baptist. They're going to be traveling all over Texas. So I think it would have helped them, per se, more than it would have helped Nichols, because Nichols would have just seen top-tier talent. I think it would have helped LSU to figure out what's it like playing in a scary environment.
And I'm talking about Dallas Baptist. Last week, they got upset by another Southland Conference school, UT Rio Grande, 15-5.
Really?
They scored 9 runs in the final inning. It might have been 11, actually.
Dallas Baptist was ranked, correct?
Yeah, they are ranked.
Wow.
It was a ranked upset.
That was the where was that game played at?
That's probably I think it was at a neutral site or Dallas Baptist.
Okay, so obviously that'll be
one team we got to look out for in Southland play.
I agree.
That's a team that could be ranked by the end of the year.
If they're beating Dallas Baptist in the first couple of weeks of the season, they're going to be on our radar.
Yeah.
Okay. Nichols' schedule against Little Rock has been released. Game 1 will be on Friday at 2, and Saturday there will be a doubleheader starting at 1. So Brogan, Little Rock, they're not a well-known team, but they're dangerous when it comes to baseball. How do you think this weekend's going to play out?
And a great basketball team, too. But
yes.
I haven't seen too much of them in baseball, so I can't make heads or tails of what they're going to come out to be. Because I thought Omaha was going to be a pretty crappy opponent, but they ended up beating us 5-2.
That was conditions, too, I'd say. So, Little Rock coming off a 3-game series against Evansville. You know Evansville
the team
always
that made a run last year.
Yes. Swept them. Now, it was in Little Rock, so you could say that maybe Evansville had traveling issues like LSU would have had if they would have come to Thibodaux in 30-degree weather. But swept Evansville, a very talented team, mid-major team, D1. So it's going to be another tough challenge for Nichols. I think that LSU game, again, would have benefited Nichols seeing that top-tier talent and playing Little Rock where, obviously Little Rock's a step down from LSU.
And it's going to be a rough series moving those games around. You got a doubleheader of a college baseball game. Just think of how hard that is to play.
That's tough for anybody.
You can do that in softball, but baseball, you're in a lot of trouble at that point.
Hopefully you've had a couple days off to rest the pitching staff because obviously at the end of that Northern Illinois series, you were toast. You were done for.
And I see that our next series is going to be against a conference opponent in McNeese. A team that's been really good in the Southland.
Yes.
Even though we beat them, 15-1 in the Southland tournament. Nobody's counting, but,
they're looking for revenge.
They made it to the tournament championship.
They're looking for revenge. So we'll see. And obviously, LSU Monday. Wow. Tulane Tuesday in Thibodaux. It's gonna be an interesting next week.
Tulane and Tib.
So if you're Nichols, you need to win this series against Little Rock. You need to go 2-1 at worst. At least set you up nicely for LSU, Tulane, McNeese the following week.
And I do have to give McNeese softball a shout out. They did really well in the tournament last year. They beat Washington.
Wow.
They almost made it to a regional, so we'll see.
Big things are happening out there in Lake Charles.
Lake Charles is where you want to be in
15-1
Louisiana.
in the men's basketball team in conference. So
they could have 3 tournament teams come this spring.
Who knows? So, finally, the Saints found their guy for the offensive coordinator position. It's time for Monday Morning Quarterback. Doug Nussmeier is the new Saints OC. A lot of familiarity with that hire. Was always a winner throughout his whole career, his whole coaching career. But he's never been an offensive coordinator in the NFL. Brogan, here's the floor.
My opinion, it doesn't matter who you put at offensive coordinator with
Really?
Kellen Moore as
Really?
the head coach. I think Kellen Moore's ideas are just going to flow through Nussmeier. I don't know how much of a say he's going to have on the offense. Maybe he's going to get them going in practice. He's going to decide their training regimen and what things they're doing while they're in practice. But when it comes game time, I think it's Kellen Moore who's deciding all those plays.
I agree with that. I think Kellen Moore is going to be the play caller. I just think Doug Nussmeier, obviously, he's always developed talent at a very high level. He was at Michigan through the NFL. He's always had a good quarterback. We'll see that this year if it's Rattler. Doug Nussmeier is the new Saints OC. A lot of familiarity with that hire. Was always a winner throughout his whole career, his whole coaching career. But he's never been an offensive coordinator in the NFL. Brogan, here's the floor.
My opinion, it doesn't matter who you put at offensive coordinator with
Really?
Kellen Moore as
Really?
the head coach. I think Kellen Moore's ideas are just going to flow through Nussmeier. I don't know how much of a say he's going to have on the offense. Maybe he's going to get them going in practice. He's going to decide their training regimen and what things they're doing while they're in practice. But when it comes game time, I think it's Kellen Moore who's deciding all those plays.
I agree with that. I think Kellen Moore is going to be the play caller. I just think Doug Nussmeier, obviously, he's always developed talent at a very high level. He was at Michigan through the NFL. He's always had a good quarterback. We'll see that this year if it's Rattler, Derek Carr. They look to the draft. Maybe for the future, we don't know. Obviously, there's another Nussmeier making headlines right now for the Tigers. Garrett Nussmeier. I would love to see him in a Saints jersey in the future. I know Brogan's not the biggest fan of Nussmeier, but
Nope, I do not want that guy in New Orleans.
you would have the whole family. I mean, Doug Nussmeier played for the Saints, was drafted by the Saints. It would be full circle.
It would be terrible. Garrett Nussmeier is not a good quarterback. I can't say that with a good conscience that he's a good quarterback.
And that is why this show is called Hindsight and Hot Takes.
That's a
bold
take.
That's a bold take. You're going to have people from Baton Rouge emailing us after this, after that
You think you can make a college football playoff?
Yes.
No. You need a good You need an elite quarterback.
What does he not?
Garrett Nussmeier is not that.
He led an SEC offense. No offense. I mean, their wide receivers were not elite last year. You had good receivers, but you did not have elite receivers. You had an elite tight end. You had a decent running game. But last year, you didn't have deep ball receivers. They got the best deep ball receiver in the transfer portal in Barry and Brown in the transfer cycle.
Maybe it'd feel different if Jaden Daniels didn't just become the second greatest LSU quarterback ever. I'd feel a little different against Garrett Nussmeier. But after we've had Burrow and Jaden Daniels kind of back-to-back...
You can't compare apples to apples.
It kind of upsets the balance right there. And there's quarterbacks better than him in college football, honestly.
Who?
I'm not going to name any names now, but
okay.
I would definitely go... I need to look... Show me... I need to look at
who's some
rosters
names?
now.
Who's some team quarterbacks, and I'll tell
Arch
you.
Manning's going to be better than him.
Arch Manning, that's
100%.
only played 90 snaps at the college level. His only game started when Quinn Ewers was hurt against UL
Quinn
Monroe,
Ewers
where he
was
threw
pretty
multiple
bad
picks.
at the end of his career in Texas.
Because it was in the college football playoff. All Arch Manning did was
That
get in
whole
for a
season,
play
he
and
wasn't
run the
good.
ball.
He wasn't good at all that season.
Okay, so you're gonna trust a guy that's only had 90 snaps.
Go Arizona State quarterback.
Levitt.
Love it. He's
But
he's going to be good.
If you go back to those games, it was Scatterboo that carried the offense.
Oh, but you saw what Levitt could do in that Texas game. You know you did.
Scatterboo carried them to that.
Levitt did some work in that game. I got to give it to
I
him.
completely disagree. Obviously, LSU's first game of the year against Clemson. Kate Klubnik coming off an amazing year. I'll give it to Dabo Swinney. He's got a good one in Kate Klubnik. Former 5-star. That could be a tough challenge for LSU.
I think it's been a long time coming, this game. I think this is a really good matchup, no matter what year it is. These are two teams that have been at the top. They're both Tigers. They both think they're Death Valley. And this is going to cement who thinks what is what.
We'll see who the real Death Valley is.
Since the Chick-fil-A Bowl, 10, 15 years ago.
And the national championship in 2019.
But you have Joe Burrow, the greatest quarterback ever. I mean, you got to give Clemson some slack there.
And now
you're not going to beat Joe Burrow.
And now for this game, you got the Nuss Bus driving in to the fake Death Valley to take down the Clemson Tigers.
I think this is a pretty even matchup right here going into the season.
This is a lot harder than USC was last year, and obviously you didn't come out on top of that game.
6-6 USC. That wouldn't have made a bowl game if you would have beat them, LSU. But they beat Texas A&M.
This is a new team. This is a new team. I mean, had a great recruiting cycle. Yeah. The main thing is you kept Nussmeier. He could have gone this year in the draft. He would have been a first or second round pick.
No, he would have been like a fourth or third round pick.
You're just a Nuss hater.
There was no good quarterbacks in this draft class except for Ward. I don't know what Shedeur Sanders is going to do. I haven't seen him in a
Nussmeier has better arm talent than Shedeur Sanders.
He might have better arm talent, but
that's what it takes. He
might have less talent in general. If we're putting together every skill he has, I think Sanders has more talent. Now, I'm not going to be stupid enough to say Nussmeier can't change my mind. If he goes out there and delivers, he does that. He's a good quarterback. Maybe the Saints want him. But I will backtrack on my statement. Mm-hmm. There are 12 teams in the playoffs now. I think he could take them to a 12-team playoff.
Put it down now. He will take them to the 12-team playoff.
But he's not going to get to the semifinals. He could win a game. Maybe he wins that second game, but they don't compete in that semifinal game.
I'll throw this at you. You think LSU gets a bye? One of the top 4 teams wins the SEC this year?
I think that's the only way they're going to get in, is if they win the SEC.
Really? You have a favorable schedule this year. Not too many tough games. Obviously, it's the SEC, so you have tough games.
You're going to need to win the SEC to get in if you're LSU.
I don't know. But we'll go back. Doug Nussmeier, new OC for the Saints. It's a new era for Saints football, obviously. We poached a lot of the Eagles coaches. That's 4 now. We'll see what happens with the Saints, obviously. Hope it's a new start for the next 10-plus years. We can go on a run. Hopefully this is the start of something great.
Doug Nussmeier turns Spencer Rattler into a serviceable quarterback this year.
Spencer Rattler is going to be Pro Bowl level in 3 years. Mark my word.
That's a hot take. I don't know if I can go with that.
Get him some receivers.
I got to see what he does this year under a new quarterback guy, a no quarterback guru.
He actually
didn't have that before.
He actually has a quarterback guru. He has an offensive-minded coach. No offense to Kubiak, but you get Spencer Rattler weapons, he'll be a great quarterback.
Bring Jameis Winston behind him. Jameis Winston shows him what he did before he came to start with the Saints. That was a good few games he had. If he tells him how to do that and he doesn't get hurt, we might need to watch out for Rattler.
We'll see what happens. Obviously, draft coming up soon. We'll be posting our predictions. We'll have another podcast about our predictions for the draft. Go through the Saints, go through the first round. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we might come to you live from the draft combine. You never know.
You never know.
You never know.
So, folks, that's all we have for today's podcast. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, please leave a like and comment your thoughts.
Hindsight's got the view. Hot takes.